Baruch Spinoza. Now, ironically, I didn't hear about him until last month, the 20th. Okay? Somebody literally had mentioned it sounded like the theory I was explaining was Spinoza's theory, which he said he was an atheist and he'd, been an atheist for a while and all this, yada, yada, yada. But he said, well, it sounds like it's Spinoza's God. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, so he's like, I can understand that, And then, I'd always told people this is like a theory that literally would be theistic and atheistic. And literally, it's religious and atheistic, making it realistic, okay? But back then, nobody knew the quantum science that we know and the laws of thermodynamics, all right? So basically, the God that Spinoza is talking about just happens to be the laws of thermodynamics, okay? In nature, it's basically natural law. What is natural law? Because he's saying that this God is more or less the laws of physics and natural law that creates the universe, and I can understand that. And it exists inside us all. And everything that the religious people say describes this in a philosophical way. But the laws of thermodynamics and quantum theory explain it in the scientific way. And it's alpha, beta, omega. See, alpha is nuclear energy, okay? And alpha means father. And also, it's nuclear energy. You get the nuclear energy from your father. And that's what you get from him. The cell, the nuclear energy in the cell, the nucleus, okay? That's the alpha. That's the male energy. A beta is when alpha becomes omega, okay? The omega is the female, all right? That's the eggs or the shells or the electron shell, okay? That's the electrons. So you have your nuclear energy, which is your neutrons, and it decays into protons and electrons, which means that the beta decay becomes both of these, and the beta is nuclear. So the nuclear energy carries the Y and X factors, just like we see in nature, where the male carries the both. He carries the Y and the X chromosomes. So the nuclear energy of the universe is the nucleus. That's the nuclear energy. That's the male of space. Okay, because space literally is, was, and always will be, just like energy. All right. So since the void of space literally can birth a universe, I explained that in the other video how it comes to be, but more or less, it's the nuclear energy of the universe which becomes, through a large beta decay process, the electric energy, and they both birth a universe. And a universe is a supreme being. Space is literally a supreme existence, which is a supreme being, which is multiverses, because the space is infinite, but a universe is finite. So literally, there has to be more universes. Just rationally, inside the infinite vastness of space. Because the singularity is only a dot rationally compared to what? Relativity. Well, and you have relative to space, it would have to be a dot. You have literally relative to infinity. That makes this thing a dot, no matter how huge it is. When you zoom in on the microcosm, or even our fundamental relativity, this thing is huge. But compared to the macrocosm, it's tiny. Okay? So alpha, the nuclear energy, which is neutrons and protons, and then you have your omega, which is electric energy, which in what we would define is Ohm's law. And that's electron current. We have the resistance, we apply the resistance, and it makes the current, you get your current. So you literally, the alpha and omega is applied to energy. Alpha, beta, omega it's applied to God too, pretty much. But, alpha, beta, omega actually is what creates the universe, ironically. That God that they're talking about, alpha and omega, we apply in our normal regime here, and it's all Greek. And I'm just saying, literally, it's all Greek. And I'm not saying that is to be I'm not saying that to be a smart ass. I didn't even, oh my God, that's funny. I just blew my own mind right there. It's all Greek. It's all Greek to me. Well, no wonder. They're explaining God. No wonder. You just got to understand it on a fundamental, wow. That's amazing. Hold on. Okay. I couldn't get my brain back on track. I still can't, because it's all Greek. But it is. It's the Greek. When we stick to the Greek stuff, that explains chakras and the nature of the universe and all of that. You just have to have your perspective correct. Spinoza's God is actually the real God. He was right 300-something years ago. It was ahead of his time. But and back then they didn't have the quantum science that we have, or the laws of thermodynamics like we have. So literally, if you apply our science now to his God, which is basically nature, what's nature? Well, the nature of hot and cold. I mean, that's the universe, literally. So it would be the laws of thermodynamics, which, boom, creates the universe, which is all Greek. But it can be explained in a simple way, and this is, how, okay, Holy Father, space is a whole, okay? This would be the Holy Father because alpha, or the nuclear energy, is the Holy Father, And plus, you get the nuclear energy inside you from your Holy Father, So, I mean, even the Holy Ghost, okay? Well, this nuclear energy would be ghost-like, Because alpha particles, this is why the Bose-Einstein condensate only applies to helium. Alpha particles, okay, are a duplicate of helium. Helium is the only thing we could turn into the Bose-Einstein condensate. The Bose-Einstein condensate is actually the nuclear energy before it has a color charge. It has no energy in it. It's cold nuclear energy in space before it goes through the singularity process. Okay? If you know the laws of thermodynamics and astrophysics and Spinoza's God, then literally you should be able to figure this out. And physicists, look, they haven't. If they say they couldn't figure this out, I swear that it's the biggest damn lie ever. And they stick with the Big Bang Theory. Come on, man, they're lying to everybody. The laws of thermodynamics and the Big Bang Theory are pretty much the same thing, except for they distract you with several things. They distract you. It's not that they're lying to you, they're just not giving you the whole truth. And they're smearing what they do give you. They're obscuring a little bit. And if you don't understand the physics of how space literally is, was, and always will be, and how energy is, was, and always will be from that space, I mean, literally the void of space can create things. And it creates a universe. But the thing is, you have to understand, there's nothing in this universe, nothing in the universe that is self-born, except for quarks. Quarks are self-born. That's self-born nuclear energy. Okay, and it happens through through chaos theory, because space is. I'm gonna just go ahead and explain this on here too. Space is 1 and 0. Okay, it's neutral. Okay, so the space itself is literally going to want to re-neutralize once the first quark happens. It's chaos theory. It has to try to re-neutralize, and during this reversion, it goes through a universe process. It's all like a downward spiral. Once the first quark is born, space literally tries to go back to its neutral state. But in order to do that, it has to go through a whole universal process to go ahead and reduce back into this void, this neutral space. But all it's going to exist is nuclear and electric energy with some ashes. And guaranteed that carbon. This is ironic. I'll just show you this. Okay, so if a universe had reduced to ashes, and there's carbon ashes and nuclear and electric energy there, they can literally go through a reverse process to break down into hydrogen, helium, and lithium. Because hydrogen, helium, and lithium can equal, you have carbon, okay? And this carbon can reduce back. I mean, in a process, this is theoretical right here. But we know it actually happens with carbon, carbon plasma. Okay, you're going to have a triple alpha process over here, but in this you're going to have a reverse triple alpha. Now what's happening is this carbon would literally break down into hydrogen, helium, and lithium, and whenever it's birthed, hydrogen, helium, and lithium will be the first three elements which create everything. First it's going to be the hydrogen, the helium, and then it's going to be the lithium, and then it's going to be a cascade of elements and minerals and things like that. So you have space, or these quark or micronova, and that's when a star, say a star, on a large star, and this is, say, a dot, this is a planet, this is our star, it explodes. Okay, what's going to happen? All of this is going to become ash and gas and stuff that really rebirths other stars and planets. Okay, so technically these quarks are micronova, and this micronova is a high energy quark which goes into a low energy quark, which would be like up and down quarks. But those up and down quarks do not have color charge, so they can't form protons and neutrons yet. But they want to form a neutron because space is neutral. It's still trying to remain neutral. So what it's going to do, it's going to try to create neutrons. So when these coalesce, and then they do coalesce because space literally recognizes everything on it. Gravity happens on every fundamental scale, even the micro scale, which is gravitons. I know it, I mean, they're theoretical or whatever, but gravity exists on micro scales too. Okay, so you're going to get what's going to become a neutron star, a real dense macro neutron star. It would be huge. It would be every particle that's going to be in the universe. It would be huge. But, like I was saying, relative to empty space that does precede this, it would be very tiny. So that's the macrocosm. See, and that's another thing, our scale invariance. Now, we know scale invariance exists, but they do not apply a scale of relativity to it. And that's where their problem is. Because on this micro scale, that's literally a microverse. Literally. It's literally a microverse. Because relative to space, anything that happens in it is tiny. Anything. So even on our tiny scales, it's still happening in space. So there's a whole universe of its own there. And then you have our fundamental relativity, which is our normal universe that we have. And then the macroverse would literally be what our universe is and everything that is many of more universes, you know? Our universe is literally like a star. Imagine a star. Imagine a galaxy of universes. Literally a big macro galaxy of universes. But every universe, every singularity is like a star or a little nebula. See, we live in a macro nebula, which is more or less a galactic nebula, which is kind of like the Crab Nebula, but on a macrocosmic scale. It's the same thing, you know, it just happens on a bigger scale. All of our science can literally be merged with this alpha, beta, omega theory. All this Greek, it's still funny, but and the microcosm and the macrocosm and all that, it's still all Greek, apparently. I mean, it's funny how like all of that coincides with this esoteric and pseudoscience and all this stuff, but it literally proves something that can be proven. They're talking about something that can be proven, is what I'm saying, and that's how I figured a lot of this out. I mean, it took me a long time until I finally saw what alpha and omega were. When I saw that, wow, alpha is nuclear energy, because alpha particles are nuclear energy, and they are helium nuclei. And like I was saying, the helium nuclei is the only thing that become the boson-Einstein condensate. And that's, I mean, literally with the omega being the Ohm's law, the resistance. And I started thinking, wow, that's the nuclear energy and then electrons. And I was like, wow. And then I put in the beta because this turns into literally the X, and I was like, oh man, just like we see in nature. I mean, it was like everything just started falling into place. And then like the holy alpha and it's omnipresent, you know, the holy, you know, Father, and, you know, omnipresent, omniscience, and I mean, everything just started falling into place. And it looked like Spinoza was correct like 300 years ago, you know. And I'm just trying to throw this out here for people that are fighting so much with something that everybody can agree on. That's what kills me. It's like everybody is fighting on something that, I mean, it's like, okay, imagine the analogy here. Okay, say you got a sidewalk, and we're going to relate that to God. Okay, you got believers calling it cement. Then you got non-believers calling it concrete. Well, who cares? What do y'all call it? Okay, y'all call it two different things, all right? The fact is, it remains. So explain something about the sidewalk, not what to call it. See what I'm saying? I mean, that's what the Word of God. This is God because the word God is just the easy way to say it, instead of saying all the Greek that comes with it. You just say God, you know. I mean, it's only got one syllable, and it explains everything. I mean, it even got nuclear energy inside us, bionuclear. We get it from our fathers. The mitochondrial energy that we get from our mothers, that's the electric energy inside our bodies, because mitochondria operates with electrical signals and electrons. I mean, we are literally biological machines, you know. So the nuclear and electric energy exists inside us all. And the atom, you know, Eve coming out of Adam, that's analogous to this, the beta decay. Because literally you got the male carrying the female, you know, and it comes out of him, you know. And we apply Eve to the evening, you know, and like an awning or something that would overshadow the male, or over, you know, oversee or surround or be around the male, you know. So it's like you have to have the marriage between these two, you know. And that's where I think the concept of marriage comes from. And that's why I think that the concept of having more than one wife is because they're representing atoms. and atom. I mean, it just seems too ironic that those fit into place. And then the sun. We're biological. We're nuclear and electric energy like the sun. You know, so we are suns too. And then there's the sun. You know, so it just seems like a lot of our languages even came from this. And like this, being holy energy, holy smoke, this is literally like smoke. The Bose-Einstein condensate is literally like a smoke-like substance. Literally. It's like, it's cold smoke. Holy smokes. I mean, it just seems like all of the stuff that we say all the time, like right in our faces, man, it's like telling us stuff. And smoke coincides with thermodynamics, because if you burn something, you get smoke. So literally, it's like it's like a circular pattern here, you know? I mean, I'm just saying, like, if all the people could agree to disagree with the same thing, then a lot of fighting and bickering in the world could stop. I'm just saying, it could be a safer place in the name of religion, you know? I mean, because it takes the Y and the X factor. Imagine this. You got the male way of thinking, okay? That's the Y factor. That's the male way of thinking. Then you have the philosophical way of thinking, okay, which is the female. You know, that's the X factor. See, it's going to take both of them. See, males tend to think macho-headed. They don't use their feelings like a woman does. She uses her heart. You know, typically we see this, you know, in nature. You know, a female typically, you know, uses her feelings. Thinks, in my opinion, has a stronger will, but I'm not going to get into all that. I explained that on another video, you know. But I'm just saying, you know, it's like the Y and the X factor stuff. Even the ways of thinking is the same. You know, it just seems to coincide with a lot of the stuff that we see in nature, and just the natural laws of energy and thermodynamics and, you know, biological energy. And then even the fact that they say, oh, well, God doesn't reward you for being good and punish you for being bad. Well, I think it does. I think it's called karma, you know. What goes around comes around. And if you're a good person, you try to perpetuate good things happen. And sometimes shit happens, yes, but keep your head up and things work out. Like this book of Job. Everybody wants to make fun of it, but they're missing what it means. They're meaning, don't give in. If things start going bad, don't just give up. Keep your head up and keep trying, and eventually things will work out. If you just let it beat you, then you just let it beat you. You just lost. You gave up. Boom. You're done. You know? I mean, don't stop before you even try. Don't even quit before you try, you know? And that's people miss a lot of the facts in the Bible and the philosophies of it that, you know, they're good life lessons to live by, you know? And I think that the government obscures a lot of this for the fact that keeping chaos alive and keeping chaos thriving and pitting us against each other just keeps everything hidden right under our noses, you know? And it's working. And I'm just trying to help, man. I just believe it can be a better place, you know?